There's a lot more to publishing a book than writing it and slapping a cover on it. Vince Flynn.
You're listening to Writing Roots, brought to you by Aspen House Publishing.
Welcome to Writing Roots. I'm Lee Hull.
And I'm Lee Esses.
Today we are talking about the pre-launch. Before you publish a book, the steps that you need to accomplish.
Saturday's episode is about writing your blurb, so that should technically happen prior to today's episode, but we had a great interview and I'm really excited for you guys to listen to that. So if it is past 3 days from when this releases, listen to the bonus episode prior to this one, because by the time we get to this pre-launch checklist, you should have your blurb written. And you should also have a handful of other things done.
You will need to have your cover designed.
You should have begun marketing.
All of the words in your story should be finalized. You shouldn't be doing any more line editing or copy editing or, goodness forbid, any actual major editing changes.
You should also have a launch date in mind.
And you should have decided which formats you're going to release it for. Your ebooks, your paperbacks, your hardcovers, or your audiobooks. If you are having an audiobook, you need to have already sent it off to them to start recording.
So the rest of today's episode is about those things to get you between those things we just talked about and launch day. Before launch, make sure that you have your book formatted.
You need to have a rough formatting already done for your cover design so you can get the correct dimensions. But that finalized formatting, you need to make sure that before you send it to printers, it is finalized, formatted, and then you can make those small adjustments to your cover design to make it work if there's any major changes.
The next thing that you have to consider on your path to publishing is your marketing strategy and that budget. So yes, you can have already started some of that marketing, started teasing, started making connections with the local hunting clubs and this and that. You can have done that, but now is the time to sit down with a calendar and build your marketing strategy. On Tuesdays, I'm going to post on TikTok and I'm going to spend this amount of money making sure that my book gets into all the local libraries, whatever it is.
As you are getting ready for the launch, you need to have your book available for purchase or pre-order somewhere. So you can do that on your own website. You can set up ebooks to be pre-ordered on Amazon, depending on where you're getting it printed, how you're distributing it to the world. You'll need to look into those options because pre-order sales make a big difference in a lot of these online platforms, how they will treat your book on the rest of the website.
Something to also keep in mind is putting it in places like Goodreads. You can do that during the pre-order process. Get it out there. If you've given out advanced reader copies, you can even start getting some of those reviews in so people can already start building hype. And that is the goal from here on, is building hype for your book.
And Goodreads is that really good resource. If you do have ARC books set out, you'll need to set up your author profile, claim any books that you have already posted anywhere, especially Amazon. You can go in there and say, hey, this is my book, because those two are owned by the same company and they'll connect. And this is the point where ARCs are very important. You do need to have that finalized language when you send it out to ARCs, but it doesn't necessarily need to be finalized formatting or cover design. ARC readers are advanced reader copies, people who read the book in advance and will post about it on social media. They'll post about it on review sites and they'll kind of get the word out for you in exchange for having early access to your book.
This does not mean grandma. Grandma is not an ARC reader. At best, she's a beta reader if she's not reading it after it came out. Because grandma doesn't have an audience of her own, I mean, maybe she does. If your grandma's a TikTok star, cool. But my grandma is not going to be an ARC reader because she'll say everything is great no matter what. No one's going to take her seriously. So when you're looking at ARC readers, you want to figure out who your target audience is and who they are following.
The most popular kinds of ARC readers are people in your audience, authors who share your target audience, And any social media influencers, radio hosts, or somebody with any sort of sway in a group of people that can say, hey, you should read this book.
This is also where those knowing people and making connections with other authors in your genre comes in handy. Because if you told your audience about their book when it released, they're a lot more likely to be able to influence their followers to read your book, especially if they don't have one they're actively marketing at that moment.
This is also the stage where you need to start finding retailers for your book. Start reaching out to local bookstores, your friends in distant places, local bookstores, your libraries, anywhere relevant for selling your book. So I went to gaming stores to say, hey, do you want to stock my books?
Because not everyone who is in your target audience is also going to find that local bookstore. So if you wrote a romance about two competing bakers at the local farmer's market, your bakeries might also be interested in having your book on the shelf. The farmer's market might be a great place to also be selling your books.
As you are getting ready for launching your book, a schedule is so important. If you are self-publishing, it is up to you to do all of the sales. It is up to you to make sure everything gets done and ready to go.
And even if you're traditionally publishing, they might be setting that launch date for you, but you are still responsible for so much of the marketing process. So the way Lee and I launch a book, the first thing we do is we figure out that launch date. If you haven't prior to this episode and you're listening because you think you're about here, set that launch date. When you're uploading those pre-orders, you lock into that launch date. And then everything else you do in building that schedule comes before or after. So it's a T plus 0, T minus 0.
T is that day. That is your launch date. T minus 3 days is 3 days before your launch date. You need to be doing XYZ. T plus 1 day is the day after launch date. You're probably in recovery.
So if you're a huge author, your launch party will be the night before launch day. So the people who are attending your party will get slightly advanced copies and they can spend all day reading it and then they'll be able to tell their friends about it and blah, blah, blah. If you're more like me, where it's just a woohoo, published a book party, then it tends to be the weekend after the book launches. So T plus 4 days or so.
And as you're building that schedule, keep in mind that you need to build a schedule for your social media posting as well so you stay consistent. Most platforms allow you to schedule posts, or there are other resources that you can use to schedule posts for those that don't.
Keep in mind, launch day will be busy. Getting your books to the right people, mailing them off. It's very easy to forget about social media, and you can just take that off of your plate if you pre-record and pre-design those posts and just launch them on launch day.
Another thing that you need to look into before launch day with social media is teasing to future posts. So you can do a cover reveal and say, ooh, join me on this day for the cover reveal and show just a little piece of it. Scheduling makes sticking to that a lot easier.
Because you just design all 3 graphics and then release them 1 week apart. Because you can schedule all of those posts on one day and then not have to think about it.
And we've mentioned a launch party a couple of times in this episode. Before you get too close to that day, is basically as soon as you decide on that date, you need to find a place for a launch party if you plan on having one. You'll need to find somewhere that's publicly accessible, so maybe a local bookstore, if you have the money to spend on it, an actual venue. But a lot of the times you'll want to go somewhere where readers are. And as for that actual day of the launch party, again, this may be before, this may be after, just to kind of depending on how you're doing it. But it's a good idea to post live videos or videos from the party as it's happening. So maybe put a friend in charge of doing that for you so that you can focus on the signings and focus on paying attention to your audience and doing the sales that you want to do at your party.
And the last thing to keep in mind and to be thinking about prior to launch day is scheduling events to promote your thing. Not just the launch party, but talking to the local radio station and scheduling an interview with them. These types of talks get people talking to each other about your book instead of you just talking at them.
And you need to make sure that not only do you schedule these kinds of events, your signings or your live reads, you need to actually promote them. So go on whatever platforms you are promoting your book, say, hey, if you want to meet me, if you want to get a signed copy in person, if you want to hear me talk about the experiences that I write about in the book, join me or listen to this radio station or this podcast or whatever, so that people are aware and they can seek it out. So you have a good in-person audience to show, hey, look, people are joining me.
So you've put all of this work into writing your book, into polishing your book, making sure that it's sensitive to certain types of people, making sure that it's entertaining for everyone. All of this work pays off now. All of this work pays off on launch day. Everything after that is just sort of excitement and whipped cream. Launch day is your goal. And how to continue promoting after launch day, because that's not the end of the process, but that continuation of promoting happens next episode. So stay tuned on Monday. We're going to talk about the post-launch checklist and mindset. And during that, we will say that even as you're doing all of this marketing and launching of books and signings and readings and this and that, you still should be
writing selfishly.
If you have a question or comment for our hosts or a topic you'd like us to cover, send us an email at writingroots@aspenhousepublishing.com or find us on Facebook by searching for Aspen House Publishing.